What's up, everybody? It's the Tabletop Tyrant, and we're going to be doing the Tomb King's Army Breakdown. So, let's get into it a little bit. I played Tomb Kings fairly decently recently, however, not back in 8th edition. Mostly because the models, in my opinion, were a bit derpy, given the fact that they were an old skeleton kit with an upgrade sprue for Tomb Kings minis. Some things that have always intrigued me about this army is the ability to take chariots, and also for myself, I'm a big monster guy, so I like that all my models can essentially be on chariot bases. Those are some of the enticing things to me. I like the Tomb Kings in theory, however, they have some downsides when it comes to being one of the first books written in 8th edition, and I'm hoping that doesn't come back to plight them in Bretonia in the Old World. So let's continue with the army breakdown. We're going to start off with the army quirks. And again, this is going to serve for posterity to kind of get us into a feel for what we may expect with the coming edition with the Tomb Kings. So we'll be able to compare and contrast. This is mostly for fun. I think it's a good thing to do. So the army had a fairly good amount of special rules. You had the Nehekar and Undead, the Hierophant, Tomb Kings BSB, Animated Construct, Arrows of Asaph, and Entombed Beneath the Sand. So let's start off with the first one. Nehekar and Undead, you got Unbreakable, so they won't run from combat. Unstable, so you take a leadership check if you lose. And for every point that you exceed, another model kind of crumbles or a wound crumbles. So say you lose your leadership test by 4, you would lose 4 warriors or a chariot, or, you get the gist. Now, the Hierophant's an interesting character here. Your army had to include one Nehekar Undead Wizard to be your army's Hierophant. So what is that? So you got like a Lich Priest, a Lich High Priest, and pretty much it always had to be the highest level sorcerer in your army. Now, pretty much this was to symbolize like them bonding the army together through magic and being able to kind of tie everything together. So he had some cool stuff. He had him and his unit would receive a 6-up regen. With the Hierophant, if you lost this model, if the Hierophant died at the beginning, immediately after he dies, everything takes a leadership check. And if you fail, they crumble. And then at the start of every single one of your turns, you have to take a leadership check. And every time you exceed the leadership, they crumble. So you're kind of seeing like the downside of this here. Hierophant was interesting. I just felt like maybe vampire counts kind of outdid Tomb Kings a lot in terms of like lore and how they kind of kept the armies together. That's just me. In terms of lore of magic, not the lore itself. Now you had Tomb Kings BSB. So everyone has a BSB. Tomb Kings BSB was a little bit different though. So Nehekar and Undead within 12 inches would suffer 1 less wound to crumble. So that was kind of cool. So it gave you a little bit of hope that you had a chance, even though you really didn't when your Hierophant ate it. Animated Construct, anything with a special rule receives a 5-up ward save and suffers 1 less wound to unstable than normal. If they're within 12 inches of the BSB, they get to stack that, so 2 less wounds. Pretty cool deal. Arrows of Asaph, personally, what I think makes the Tomb Kings kind of special is they always hit shooting attacks with the bow. Anything with this keyword always hits on a 5. You can't improve it, and you can't make it worse. It's just always a 5. Doesn't matter if they're the full range, if they've moved. 5s to hit. And then Entombed Beneath the Sands, I talked about this on Prince Apopas's video, which boom in this corner if you want to check it out, but we'll cover it briefly. It's like Deep Strike. You set up a coin on the table, you say I want to come here, you roll a scatter and artillery die, and they move. If you get an arrow that says 5, you move that direction 5 inches. If you get a direct hit, shows up right where you want it. If you roll misfire, you got a chart to consult. 1 to 2, the model's dead. No bueno. If you get 3 to 4, you get to retry and try next round. If you get a 5 to 6, that unit shows up on a random board edge on the table. So it's going to be so far removed, you might as well just not take it. It's cool, thematic, but not the best in my opinion. And I personally have always had Entombed Beneath the Sands screw my Tomb Scorpions up, screw my Sepulchral Stalkers up. Anything I put Entombed Beneath the Sands gets screwed. Moving on. So Treasures of the Necropolis. Now, you'll notice with the Tomb Kings, they have two really big themes in their army. You're looking at poison, and you're looking at killing blow. Those things are like really big within this army book, and it's good. Like, killing blow is cool that, you know, on a 6-up it's just dead. Minus the fact that if it has a ward save, it still gets it. Heroic killing blow is really cool because you're just killing lords, heroes, monsters just outright with some of the stuff they have here. So with one of the pieces of Wargear being Destroyer of Eternities, you're looking at 80 points. It's +2 strength and heroic killing blow. So on a 6, you're just straight up icing something. So you can also make a sweeping attack with it. So everything in base-to-base contact for a single strike, +2 strength, still heroic killing blow. So we kind of understand how the model works. If you're not in a challenge and say my model's centered against 3, I would get boom, 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 all 3, because my base can diagonally connect to the center. I'll have to show it in a demonstration. The Blade of Anthrak, 50 points. You gain a wound back for every wound you cause. And if you're maxed on wounds, you gain regen for that turn. So, kind of cool. I don't know. It's weird because like you gain regen for that turn, but combat's the last phase you're in. And it says for the turn, so not in your opponent's turn. I don't know. The Golden Death Mask of Karna, which we talked about a little campaign the Tomb Kings pulled off against the Empire with this mask. If you care to see that, top right-hand corner. It's 60 points. You gain Terror. Enemy units within 6 inches may not use their general's inspiring presence. So you're screwing over things, especially like trolls, where they kind of need that inspiring presence, right? But again, it's only 6 inches, and you're looking at 60 points. A lot of these upgrades are really points heavy. A lot of this book is really points heavy, and that really kind of kills the Tomb Kings, because a lot of other army books later on that would be made would end up getting stuff a lot cheaper, making these guys kind of overcosted in points. However, continuing the Cloak of Dunes, 50 points, you gain Fly, and you do 2d6 strength 2 hits for every enemy unit that this model flies over. You can only fly over them once. So you can't just like go back and forth and keep flying over them and killing them off. So that's interesting. It says for the movement phase it can only happen once. However, you can move again if you take the Lore of Nehekara, and that would be interesting to kind of see, can you do it again then? But we'll cover that in the lore. Nefarious Scrolls, 50 points, one use only before casting a spell. Immediately add a number of extra dice equal to the power level of the wizard. Now, these dice are not considered power dice, but they still miscast on double 6s. Make it make sense to me? I don't know. So maybe they're seeing something I don't. And then you have N kills Kenopai. If I'm killing the pronunciation, I'm sorry. This is not my area of expertise. I'm barely proficient at English at this point. So, 25 points, bound spell, power level 3. If successful, roll a d6 for every remains in place spell. On a 2-up, the spell is dispelled. And you add d3 power dice to your power pool. Kind of cool. Standard of the Undying Legion, 50 points, bound spell, level 5. If successful, regain 2d6 plus 2 wounds worth of models. So, with this, you'll be able to cast this spell, and then, like it says, you'll regain d6 plus 2 wounds. Now, say you roll a 2 and plus 2, you get a chariot back plus a wound. Now, this is helpful because the Tomb Kings don't have a lot to really bring troops back, which is really rough. It's not like the vampire counts where you're just raising dudes left, right, and center. When you lose these guys, it's like d6 or d3 plus 1 for their lore attribute on an augment spell. You know, it gets kind of rough. And that's if you take the Lore of Nehekara. If you don't take the Lore of Nehekara, you're not bringing people back. So it's really difficult to say. I think that's worth it, personally. Like, one I would always take. But that's just me. Now, the Banner of the Hidden Dead is 90 points. Now, what exactly do you get for that 90 points? You get to take a unit and entomb beneath the sands. However, that unit may not exceed 150 points. Now, with that entomb beneath the sands, you get to re-roll the scatter. But if you re-roll the scatter die, you have to re-roll the artillery die as well. Or the distance die. So you don't get to just pick one or the other. And I'm pretty sure you must keep the second result. It doesn't say so, though, so I don't know. Yeah, so interesting stuff. Personally, I think you're better off taking stuff out of the generic rulebook, but just me. Definitely cool things for if you want to model it for a campaign. The Destroyer of Eternity sounds freaking dope, like a metal band. The lore of Nehekara. So, yeah, again, we're getting into like the muddier side of my opinion here. The lore of Nehekara has got to be some of the most trash lore I've played in any of my armies, and I'm sorry if you like it. I know that a lot of people are like, it's thematic, and it is thematic. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it could have been better. You know what I mean? So the lore attribute: when casting an augment spell on a unit, that unit can regain D3 plus 1 model's worth of wounds. Stack that with a BSB, and you're sitting pretty tight on something you don't want to die a unit. And then the signature, it has 2 casting values, regular and supersized. So 8 and 16 for the casting values. So you have a 12-inch range. The big kahuna is 24. And for all friendly units unengaged in combat, you can make a normal move as if it was the movement phase. Now, I don't know if the Cloak of Dunes benefits from this, but if you really want to just screw people over, you can fly back over and do the 2d6 wounds. But hey, you know what? I don't know. You had Cursed Blades, so 7 out of 7 to cast the mini, 10 to cast the supersize, had a 12-inch range, and you gain Killing Blow. If you already had Killing Blow, you add 1 to the Killing Blow. And this also stacks with Heroic Killing Blow, so take the Blade of Eternities, cast this on, you're Heroic Killing Blowing someone on a 5, which sounds really rough when you say it fast. And that's it. That's a pretty good deal. And if you cast it on a 10, all units within 24 inches will get this special rule. So you'll notice that when they do their lore, it's like just a bigger radius, a bigger bubble, everything's going to get it. Yeah, it's alright. I don't mind it. I think it's easy to remember as well. Incantation of Protection. If I'm not saying the beginning part, it's because I am summarizing. So you got casting value of a 9 or 18 for supersize. You get a 12-inch range on that 9, and you get a 5-up ward save on a single unit. Now, if you supercharge it, all the units within 12 inches gain a ward save of 5. And it's an augment as well as Cursed Blades and the signature. So with those augments, you're bringing back D3 plus 1 models at the end of the casting if it's successful. Righteous Smiting, 9 and a casting value of 18 as well for supersize. Again, you get a casting range of 12 inches and you get plus 1 attacks. And this also applies to shooting. So chariots have bow and hand weapon. They'll get an extra bow shot as well as an extra attack until your next turn. Kind of cool. And then you can supercharge it to the 18, and that's all units within 24 inches. And then you got the Vengeance. You got a casting value of 10, supercharged is 13. 18-inch range, D3 to movement, and all terrain. So you subtract D3 from whatever enemy unit you cast that on, and they have to treat every piece of terrain, even open ground, as dangerous. And that doesn't matter if they're moving, fleeing, marching, sneezing, they're taking that dangerous terrain check if they're moving at all. And minus D3 is no joke. You know, you subtract even 2 inches from normal people's movement, you're screwing them over pretty rough. And then again, you can supersize that, and this is just going to increase it to 36. So, you got Ushepkek's Incantation of Desiccation, cast on an 11, supercharges at a 22. So, what do you get with this? You cast and you get a range of 24 inches, and you get minus 1 strength and toughness on the enemy you cast it on. This is a hex spell. Now, you can supersize this spell, and it doesn't increase range, it does something different. It's minus D3 to strength and toughness. 22, though, is rough to justify spending that on. Up to you, use your discretion advised. And then you have Skullstorm. This one baffles me. It's cool. It's like knockoff Purple Son of Xerxes, maybe. Not really, though. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'll just say it to you. Skullstorm, you cast on a 15. You can supercharge that bad boy to a 25. Starts off as a round template. The 25 casting gives you the large template. You set a marker on where you want the spell to materialize, and you pick a direction by rolling an artillery die. You pick a direction, and then you roll an artillery die, and you multiply that by your wizard level. So if you roll a 10 on that artillery die, that storm is going to be, and you're a level 4 wizard, it's moving 40 inches in the direction you picked. Now, you might ask, Tyron, what happens if I misfire? No, it's no big deal. You just center it on the caster, and everything underneath the template, hopefully you didn't do the big one, suffers a strength 4 hit. So that's dope. But if it goes off as planned, it does strength 4 hits to anything that template gravitates over. Now, it's a remains in play spell. So that means if someone wants to dispel it, I think they can. But also, you roll a scattered eye at the beginning of every, I think, magic phase. And if you roll a misfire, the storm dissipates. If it rolls and it points an arrow up and says move 5 inches, you move up 5 inches. No big deal, you know. And this is considered a magical vortex. Pretty cool. I like the purple sun a little bit more, but hey, to each their own. And now we're coming on here. So we get some mounts with the Tomb Kings, as you'll know, a bit skimpy. That's not their fault, though. They just didn't get a lot of love. You got a skeletal steed, a war sphinx, and a skeleton chariot. It's cool. I like the chariot. I haven't tried the war sphinx yet. I have every intention on it, but haven't gotten around to it. And now we're moving to the unit profiles. Let's check it out. PowerPoint. Boom. Oh my. The skill. I'm just kidding. It's late, so I'm just messing around. So again, building an army. In 8th edition, you had a 25% core minimum. Special up to 50, but not to exceed. And rare up to 25, but not to exceed. Let's move on. Alright, so core units. Oh, sorry, I'm punishing this poor chair every night. Core units, skeletal archers, 6 points, and you have 10 points for command element. So musician, standard bearer, and champion are all 10-point upgrades. You can add 1 point for light armor, and they always hit on 5s due to the arrows of Asaph. Couple that with Queen Khalida, which we'll talk about later. 60 archers. It can be super freaking nasty with volley fire. Carrying on warriors, 4 points. They start off with hand weapon shield, so you get a 6-up parry. You can get the command, same thing, 10 points for everything, plus 1 for light armor. Maybe upgrade that spear and light armor. So if you want to get that extra 3rd rank of attacks, just upgrade the spear and just hold them tight to get charged. Now, horsemen and horse archers. There's a 2-point difference, but that 2-point difference gives the horse archers scout, which is really good. And again, they're horse archers, and they have arrows of Asaph, so they're always hitting on 5s. Not bad, not bad. And again, they have Vanguard, so they're being able to kind of move before the turn. So they deploy 12 inches. They can move up to 12 inches after deployment. And they're kind of up in your Kool-Aid, and people aren't going to be digging it. And hitting on 5s is pretty good for being a cavalry unit that moves. So, I don't know. Again, because of Nehekar and Undead, they're not able to like choose to retreat or do all this crazy stuff. So I don't believe they have the fast cav like rule. I'm not sure though. No, they can't. That's right. They cannot flee because they're Nehekar and Undead. So if someone charges you, you got to eat that. So keep that in mind when you're doing your nonsense. The horsemen, 12 points, 10 points per command, 2 points for shield, hand weapon, shield, and then spear and vanguard. They're not worth it in my opinion, unless you're going to throw a mage in there so he can miscast and blow up. Now this is my favorite personally. Skeleton chariots, 55 points a pop, 10 points for upgrade of the command, so champion, musician, standard bearer. That's the last time I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say 10 points from here on out. You get impact hits, and you get to add +1 strength for every rank of chariots. So if you have 2 ranks of chariots, you're strength 5 on that impact hit. Pretty dope. You can include a magical standard up to 25 points, and they come packing a spear, a bow, and a hand weapon. So those skeletons on the charge are going to be strength 4. Not too bad. And it's a toughness 4 chariot. So be that as it may. Moving on. We're moving to the special units and the boo-boo. Tomb Guard, 11 points per model. Now, Tomb Guard are like the Grave Guard, but less cool because they don't take great weapons. Now, Tomb Guard can be upgraded to the command, again, 10 points. They can take up to a 50-point magical standard. They're strength 4, toughness 4 with a shield, and light armor. So you're looking at a 5-up armor save. And they may be upgraded to a halberd for 2 points, and like their counterparts of the Grave Guard, they have killing blows. So on a 6, whoosh, off with their head. I believe 6 to wound. Necropolis Knights, my personal favorites. Are they good? I don't think so, but I've been kicking butt with them. You know, taking advantage of the people that don't know what they're doing, just bringing nonsense. I like them a lot. They're 65 points, minimum of 3. 10 points, again, for upgrading all the command. The stone hide, so that gives them a 3-up armor save. So unlike other animated constructs with their weak little 5-up save, these dudes got a 3-up, so it's like get wrecked, fool. They have a killing blow for the rider, poison attacks for the necro serpent. So it's kind of dope. It's also monstrous calf, so at initiative step 1, you get a stomp. The knights are weapon skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, and the snake is weapon skill 3, however, strength 5, toughness 4. Not bad, not bad. You're looking at the toughness 4. Tomb Scorpions, minimum 1 unit, 85 points. You get magic res 1, poison attacks, killing blow, and Tomb Beneath the Sands, like we covered. How bad do you not want your stuff to show up? And it's animated construct, so you're looking at the 5-up armor save. It's weapon skill 4, strength 5, toughness 5, which is good. It's a good thing. You can kind of don't have to worry about arcs when you're deploying because it's a single model. And I believe once you Tomb Beneath the Sands, if you show up where you're supposed to, you can still move, I believe. I think it's done before the movement, but after the charging, 100% after the charging. And then, like I said, 3 wounds and 4 attacks with poison. You're not too bad. You can hit someone's flank and you're laughing, you know what I mean? It's little things like that. I think using the Tomb Scorpions, the Stupid Carrions, the Tomb Swarm, all those are really good for just taking flanks and screwing people over. And if you can pull off a great game of Tomb Beneath the Sands, you can position yourself just right to where they have to be something people worry about. Ushapti, 50 points and 3 minimum. They're monstrous infantry sitting at weapon skill 4, ballistic skills 2, but that don't matter because they got arrows of Asaph. Strength 4, toughness 4, and wounds 3. They're monstrous infantry too, so you're stomping the fool at initiative 1 at the end. Now, they have great bows, which are a free upgrade, and they have a 30-inch range. They're strength 6, and they volley fire, so that's pretty dope. Great weapons, which are plus 2 strength, so they're hitting you at strength 6. And they also have a hand weapon. And they're, like I said, they're horde, so you can do 6 wide and at least 3 deep to horde them up. I don't think we're going to see horde in the new edition because it didn't bring anything up, and I hope we don't because it was a little bit annoying for me personally. You're looking at the Tomb Swarm. These are like the Canoptic Scarabs, the little tiny ones, and they were a metal thing that you just glued on a 40 mil base. Super cool. I thought they were cool. They had like a Tomb King crawling from underneath them. It was funny. So anyways, 40 points. You have to have at least 2. Their strength 2, toughness 2, 5 wounds, 5 attacks, poisoned attacks, and a Tomb Beneath the Sands. Again, they're good for tying down units or hitting a flank if you don't care about them. But they are still 40 points, which is like, you know, a Chaos Spawn 65 to put it in comparison. I don't even know if that's a good comparison. That's actually a pretty garbage comparison, but you get the gist what I'm saying. It's expensive. Carrion, 24 points. You have to have 3 minimum. So they're a little interesting. They have fly, their strength 4, their toughness 4, which is actually pretty decent. They're 2 wounds and they get 3 attacks. I don't know. I mean, I've never used them. And I never used them because I kept buying them, but like they would break and they were pewter and then they wouldn't line up right. I wasn't very good at building them. My fault. Now here's what I'm looking forward to getting down on. You have the Cavalry War Sphinx, 210 points, and that's buying you some nastiness. You get Killing Blow on the Tomb Guard, Large Target, Terror, Monstrous, so you get to do that Thunder Stomp. Your weapon skill 4, 3 for the Tomb Guard, Strength 5, Toughness 8, 5 wounds, and 4 attacks. That's a oofy doofy if I've ever heard of one. Thunder Crush attack, so after the crew attacks, the War Sphinx can choose to do a single attack roll against the highest weapon skill in base contact. So if someone's in a challenge, they're not in base contact because they're in base contact in the challenge. Breaking that down for those that don't know. And then what you get to take your little small template, place it over there, and everything under receives a strength 3 hit. And the center hole is strength 9 with D3 wounds. It's dirty, but it's cool, and I'm looking forward to testing it out. You have a Howdah crew. All hits against the War Sphinx are added strength and toughness, not the crew. So for shooting, you roll a d6 on a 1 through 4, it hits the Sphinx. On a 5 to 6, it can hit a character. So it can hit a character because you can take this as a mount for your characters, as we discussed earlier. And that's how you would determine what took the wound. You got Envenom Sting for 10 points, gives you poison attacks. However, doesn't apply to your Stomp, and it doesn't apply to your Thunder Crush. Fiery Roar, which I think is great personally. 20 points, strength 4, and a breath weapon template. You can't go wrong with that. And I believe it is Flaming Attack special rule. Last but not least, the Sepulchral Stalkers. In my mind, they were dope. In reality, they did not do very well for me. So you have 55 points per mini. And they have a Transmorgifying Gaze. It has 8-inch range. It's strength 1. But you don't roll to hit. You roll an artillery die for each stalker and resolve the number of hits that the dice says. Which misfire exists on 2 pieces of the 4-sided die. And it ain't looking good for your homie, man. So to wound, you also don't worry about the toughness. You go against their initiative value, using the highest value of their initiative. So if they're riding a pig, you're not over there screwing your opponent like, oh, I'm going against initiative 2. You're going up against the initiative 3 orc. Using the highest value, so no armor saves allowed. That's kind of cool, but I mean, you'll still get your ward saves, obviously. So, as well as if the model has no initiative at all. So say it's like somehow got 0 initiative, you just can't attack it. Get wrecked. And then for each misfire you roll, you take D3 auto wounds with no armor saves allowed. And it's to simplify, like, the snake looking at his own reflection in the reflection of the sword, so they like transmorgify themselves. And these bad boys are monstrous beasts, so they have stomp, weapon skill 3, strength and toughness 4 with 3 wounds. I think not worth it to me, in my opinion. So now we're moving on to rare. Necropolis Colossus, 170 points, causes terror, large target, and arrows of the Saf. The others. So yeah, it has all the other stuff too, like Nehekar and Undead, all that stuff. So most of this stuff has the keyword Nehekar and Undead, unless I say otherwise. This is the big pewter bone giant. You could upgrade to have a bow, which was pretty freaking sweet. 48 inches, strength 6, D3 wounds, no armor saves allowed, and it was treated like a bolt thrower. So if you punch through that first rank, you could punch through the second rank on another roll. So that was kind of awesome. It also had a special rule called Unstoppable Assault. In a turn in which the model charges in combat, for every unsaved wound it makes, you get to make an additional attack on that unit. So it's just, you can kind of stack it. And with 4 attacks and strength 6, toughness 6, you're sitting fat and happy. Next was a Hyro Titan. You had to actually like convert your own for this and never got a model. There were some dope people out there that made some cool legs that you could attach the Necrosphinx torso on. Really sweet. Weapon skill 3, strength 6, toughness 6, 5 wounds. Had a couple of bound spells. Spirit Conduit. While within 12 inches of your wizard, you could channel an additional D3 dice for casting. You're going to see that a lot with the Casket of Souls. You had the Icon of Petra, power level 3, and that Shem Burning Gaze from the Lore of Light. And Scales of Assyrian, power level 4, Spirit Leech from the Lore of Death, which is pretty dope. So the Necrosphinx, it's honestly the coolest looking mini in my opinion. You're looking at 225 points, weapon skill 4, strength 5, toughness 8, 5 wounds, leadership 8, killing blow, large target, terror, and others. It has a freaking attack you can do. You can choose one attack, and you can say, I'm going to decapitating strike your little butt. And you nominate one attack. It rolls separately than all the others, and this attack is considered strength 10 with heroic killing blow. That's right. Your friend brought an annoying monster like a Stonehorn. Wham! Chop its head off. Pretty sweet. And then you had the Envenomed Sting, which was the same thing as before, and its poison attacks. Screaming Skull catapults, 90 points, your only source of artillery. You can upgrade the Scourge of the Full for 30, which is -1 leadership if they take a panic test after sustaining 1 wound. And the Stone Thrower attacks are flaming and magical, and if unit suffers 1 or more casualties, take the panic test as if it was 25%. So if you stack those two, they're -1 leadership, and they're taking the panic check if you just kill 1 mini. I don't know how good it's going to do. It might do good if it's against goblins, bad if it's against anything that is pretty strong. Now the Casket of Souls. 135 points. Add D3 to the power pool when channeling. You have the Light of Death. Think Raiders of the Lost Ark. Boom. Power level 5, direct damage, 48-inch range. Take a leadership test on 3d6, and for every point that guy goes over, they take a wound. You don't like someone's chariot? Force that leadership check on 3d6, homie, and enjoy that. After this is resolved, roll a d6. On a 3 up, the target's another unit within 6 inches, enemy unit obviously, and unengaged. And you just continue doing this until you run out of units to jump to. You cannot, however, target the same unit in the same go. That is illegal. So you get to go through all the units one time in the phase. And then Unleash Souls. You roll a d6 for every unit friendly and enemy within 12 inches. On a 4 up, you suffer d6 strength 6 hits distributed as shooting attacks. These are magical attacks and no saves may be taken. You can still take your ward save. So when this thing dies, it's like exploding with all the energy, dude, and it's going crazy. And you don't care who it's hitting. You got to take it on your friendly units too. So there we go. Boom, boom, boom. Now, Lords, we're going to just jump right through here in a jiff. And we're going to give it a little talk, yeah? So, boom. Name Lords, name heroes, generic and heroes. So you have 25% Lords, 25% heroes, and times 50%. We go. I don't think it's going to be like this. So, name Lords. I'm not going to get too deep into them because I'm covering their own videos. Again, Prince of Papus dropped yesterday. So I'm going to go through these guys all in due course. Queen Khalida uses, however, this is her rule, and I'm asking this because I think if any of you have an answer for me, it would be great. So it says Queen Khalida, you get to use her ballistic skill, and you gain poison. But I'm lost because Arrows of Asaph say you can't modify the ballistic skill due to the special rule that they get. So if you could help me out with that, understand, Tomb King players, bring it in, huddle it up, because I need to know the answer to this one. Because you shouldn't be able to increase the ballistic skill. However, if you did, they would be hitting on force. So, moving on. Boom. Boom. The Herald and the Cavia, he chills with Cetra. Prince of Popas, we covered. And Rob Hotep, the Visionaries, and Necrotech, that is named. So, boom. Now, we got the Tomb King and Tomb Princes. They have Flammable, so they're weak to fire. And the Curse. Whatever inflicts the final wound will suffer a D6 Strength 5 hit. If it's a prince, it's D6 strength 4 hits. These count towards combat res, which is like the big FU to somebody that kills these dudes. If the model dies due to stability, this disperses towards the enemy unit. And then they have My Will Be Done. The unit they join will use their weapon skill, which is super beefy for things like Tomb Guard and, I believe, Chariots, in my opinion. The priest can draw from 3 different lores. You can take Nehekara, Light, and Death. Go Death, it's the best in my personal opinion. I just think that you can't go wrong with the spells in there. Tomb Herald. You got Flammable, Killing Blow, Nehekara and Undead, Swarm Bodyguard, and with Swarm Bodyguard, you nominate a king or a prince, and he's pretty much got a role in that unit, and he's over there taking hits for the homies, dude. He's just taking them on the chin. Every time you have to allocate a wound to your king/prince on a 2-up, the Tomb Herald jumps in the way and just takes it right on the chin.
That extra A stands for ass. Yours, between mine and a bullet.
Now, if you roll a 1, it's status quo. You roll that, you see what happens on the king or prince going forward. Yeah, it's, you know what, there's worse things. And then the Necrotech is kind of like my favorite, personally. He gives hatred of the unit as long as he's alive and in the unit. And then he gives animated constructs within 12 inches. So not 1, but any within 12 inches, a 6-up regen. So you can't go wrong with that. And that's the Stone Shaper special rule for anyone interested. And now we covered them. Now we're going into the summary here. Let's talk shop. Let's talk about how we can do this. As you see, sweet artwork. Where to start and what to expect. I think Tomb Kings are going to get the love of the beginning of this edition. Hopefully they're not dragged out like the Sons of Horus were. As a Sons of Horus player, it was exhausting to see a bunch of stuff come out. I'm grateful, but, you know, a little too much. So, we can expect to see them get their book. We can expect to see them get some updates. Hopefully, they update the skeleton models like a tad so they don't look so, like, you know, 1980s. Where can we get bases? I'll put links below to eBay and Amazon. And then what can you expect from the old world with the Tomb Kings? We just talked about it. Now, they've had a couple different editions. They had 6th edition and 8th edition. 6th edition, I believe all their spells were more like prayers. where then they now became spells. So they're really up in the air in terms of how they can do anything. One thing I think that will be important is that they are going to need a Hierophant probably still. They're probably still going to play into the love of the Tomb Herald. We're probably going to see Cetra the Imperishable because he's iconic and unending. He can't die. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to see what they do. Now, if you want to get on these models a little early and you have a 3D printer, there are a lot of different people that you can look into. Just type in Tomb King's STL files and you'll find them to your abundance. Those are the ones I use because I'm not going to hunt down old school models, and I'm definitely not going to hunt down and pay expensive prices for old school derpy models. Everybody, it's the Tabletop Tyrant. Thank you for showing up. I hope you appreciated this. It's a lot of fun, again, to make these, so I'm enjoying myself. Next week, Bretonia is coming up, and their Sorry 6th edition book. We're going to do the lore. We're going to cover the army. I don't know what I'm doing a whole lot with them, so I'm going to have to start reading now. And this Friday, Bretonia, let's do it. Everyone, bump it. I hope you have a good day, and you take care. Take it easy, and you know what? Enjoy the rest of the week. Peace.